What's up, G Show Land? It is IG1, and here we are on Monday for a Monday Spotlight. Of course, I am here with my homeboy G95. What's up, brother?
What's up, guys?
Yeah, and today, being it's a spotlight, we're gonna actually spotlight, and we are a couple days late, but we're actually gonna spotlight Friday the 13th. We're spotlighting the Friday the 13th movies, Jason Voorhees, Mrs. Voorhees, and we might even get a little into Freddy versus Jason because that is kind of in continuity, somewhat. But that being all said, I'm just gonna throw this out there. While I have seen every single Friday the 13th movie, it has been a long while. I was more of a Nightmare on Elm Street fan, so those movies are more embedded in my brain. Friday the 13th, though, I've always had a soft spot for Jason. Maybe later on, too. I think it was part 6 when Jason comes back as like zombie Jason. That's when I really, really got into it. And I'll never forget the first time I watched a whole, complete Friday the 13th movie was actually part 7 with the psychic girl. And I'll never forget when she used her psychic powers and, you know, Jason's mask popped off and there was like this crazy creature and all that. I was like, whoa! Blew me away. I was a lot younger then because, of course, that movie came out in the 80s, I believe, or early 90s. I don't even remember, but I know it was like when I was still young. But, so yeah, a lot of this I'm going to rely on my good friend G95 because I know you are a horror aficionado, something. So let's get on with it. Let's start from part 1, I would assume, right? With Mrs. Voorhees going around killing teenage camp counselors for having premarital sex and letting her son drown while he was just a young little special needs child. G95, take it away.
Oh, where do we start with that? I mean, it was... They actually sold the title for the movie and started advertising the title to get like sponsors and to get money for the movie before they had any idea what they were going to do for the plot. Then from there, they just figured, oh, let's shoot it in the woods of New Jersey because it's cheaper and it's local. Let's go with like a camp theme. And they, Sean Cunningham, the writer, director, producer of the first one, is very vocal about him basically ripping off the plot of Halloween. I mean, what else can we say about that one? It's the classic. It's the standard. I guess if Halloween wrote the first half of the book of slasher rules, Friday the 13th wrote the rest of the rules 2 years later.
Right, especially considering they're not supernatural just yet.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, Tom Savini's working on it. Got, it's not, who played Mrs. Voorhees? Betsy Palmer.
Yes.
Betsy Palmer. Yeah, she's, was a famous sort of like game show host or hostess, something back in the day. They got her involved. It was one of Kevin Bacon's very first movies. And I didn't see this movie until I was in 8th grade. I'd seen more or less all of the other ones at that time. And I remember got home from school, got it from like Hollywood Video or something like that when that was still a thing, or maybe I got it from Netflix at that point. I don't really remember.
Hollywood Video, shout out, nice. Rest in peace, Hollywood. Rest in peace.
Got home from school. It was a rainy day. Threw it on. I was home alone, and at this point, I was still a hardened horror fan. I'm pretty sure that was this. 8th grade is also the year that I saw, all the sleepaway camp movies, and I saw Cannibal Holocaust when I was in 8th grade.
Wow.
And, those didn't really bother me, or, any of the other crazy gore shit that I watched back then. because at that point I was watching just about anything. Because, you know, I was like, wow, Netflix has fucking everything. I'll just watch it all. Gotta be kind of every movie's gotta have some redeeming value. I found out that's definitely not true.
It's not.
But for whatever reason, this movie like freaked me out a bit. Something about the vibe was just genuinely pretty creepy and scary. And I mean, for someone who was like 13, it was creepy. And at that point, I think I'd seen all the other sequels by then, more or less. But for whatever reason, that was the one that really like stuck with me as in terms of it like scared me.
So let me ask you a quick question. Being that you've seen pretty much all the other sequels at that time, did you know going in this wasn't Jason? This was about Mrs. Voorhees?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Because I found that out late. I'll be honest with you. When I didn't watch Friday the 13th when I was a kid. I didn't. We see a lot of Freddy Krueger. That like I said before, we went to the movies a couple of times to see a couple of Freddy movies. So Jason, I don't know what it was about Jason. It just, for me, used to freak me out a bit as a child. And I don't know if it was the hockey man. I think it was. He's just a towering monster. So all that, I did not know that it was Mrs. Voorhees in Friday Part 1 until way later on in life. But that's just me interrupting you. Go for broke, brother.
I mean, really, what else is there to say about the movie? I think, you know, every hardened horror fan knows Friday the 13th, the first one anyway, through and through. It's not my favorite of the bunch. It's definitely up there. It's probably one of the best, like, most well-made of all of them. But I'd have to throw Part 4 as my favorite, just because that movie is damn near brilliant.
Part 4 is the final chapter, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so here's the thing. I remember this when I was a kid going to the video stores, and it wasn't Hollywood or Blockbuster yet. It was your local VHS, your video store. You used to go in there. There was no Blockbuster yet, and Hollywood wasn't even a thought. And we used to go to these places, and I'd go to the horror section. I don't know why. Because there was sci-fi, fantasy, horror all in one spot. So I'd go look for like Star Wars or Masters of the Universe because that was a thing that came out. And then I see all these awesome covers for Friday the 13th that have the mask. And I'll never forget, seared into my brain, Friday the 13th, Part 4, the final chapter, had, if I'm not mistaken, the machete in the mask in a pool of blood. And that visual has always stuck with me. And I remember when I saw that movie, did he get hit with a TV or something? I know there was an axe involved. I know there was the machete, of course. But was there a TV?
I don't remember much about a TV in that one.
All right, so maybe I'm thinking Scream because that's just the way my mind works sometimes. I like horror, guys. I do. But like I said, I haven't watched the Friday the 13th like that. I've only seen a couple of them more than a handful of times. So the early ones, I saw Part 4 maybe twice. Maybe 3 times, and the last time I watched that movie was when they came out with an anniversary collector's edition, and this is going back almost 10 years. So that's the last time I actually saw that movie. So yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, brother.
I don't know. That one, for whatever reason, has just always really stuck with me. I mean, for a lot of great reasons. I think it has the, if I could be a little crude, the best looking girls. Some of the most brutal kills. That was the last time Jason was like alive. You know, parts 1 through 4 take place more or less within a few days of each other. It's like one kind of continuous saga up to that point. But you know, like Tuesday the 16th or something, the 17th doesn't sound nearly as good as Friday the 13th Part 4.
I do remember this. And I remember liking this a lot. Like you said, it takes place kind of in the same week. and I believe it's part two, the opening of part two. The girl who survived is in her house, and Jason comes and kills her. I think the mother's head is in the refrigerator, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And I absolutely love that. And that's you threw Halloween. You mentioned Halloween before, and that's one of the things I loved about the Halloween series, is that part one and part two, it's the same night. It's the same night, or the next day. And little known fact, I am born on November 1st, so that was an extra added kick, for my excitement and enjoyment level for Halloween 2 and that whole movie in general. But I've always liked that idea of keeping it going at the same time, not the same place, obviously, but pretty much the same time, same week. And I thought that was one of the things I really liked about Friday Part 2, especially because did he kill her there, or did she just disappear and she's dead, she never came back? Because I don't remember that. I don't know if he killed her.
I also don't really remember.
Because if for some reason in my head I'm thinking it was like mysterious. The head was in the refrigerator, and then Jason came, and then like the title card popped up, and we never see her again.
Like
yeah, so she's just like gone. It's like it's a mystery. Did he kill her? She's dead, of course, but that's what it is.
Well, I mean, as for the continuation thing, I mean, the opening scene, the opening shot of Part 4 takes place in the aftermath of Part 3. It shows it takes place with cops wheeling away the bodies, then wheeling away Jason's body, and then it's brought to a morgue where he terrorizes a couple people, and then eventually breaks out, and then back to the lake, basically. This is it had Tom Savini returning for the makeup, more or less to kill his baby Jason, because they made it under the pretenses of it being the last Friday.
Right, final chapter.
Mm-hmm. And that never ever turns out to be so. It had Crispin Glover in it as a young sex-crazed guy who couldn't get any action. It started off the Tommy Jarvis saga with Corey Feldman.
Yep.
It had more or less the guy who was sort of hunting Jason, whose sister was killed in Part 2, I believe. It had Jason obviously being, I guess, like human for the last time and actually dying. It also has one of my just favorite lines out of anything ever. There's the scene in the morgue. The really douchey medical examiner is trying to hit on this young nurse and stuff, and it's not really working that well. But I think somehow Jason's hand falls out of the body bag or something like that, and he screams, "Holy Jesus, goddamn! Holy Jesus, jumping Christmas shit!" And that's just always been one of my favorite lines ever.
See, that's what I loved about movies like that, especially during the 80s. It's just like there was no care, there was no sensitivity issues, man. Look, this is what this is. Fucking slasher horror flick. We're gonna show teenagers having sex. There's gonna be girls running around topless, and then there's gonna be gratuitous violence and death, and it worked, and that's why it had 9 sequels. It's fucking what it is. I love it. And then you have lines like that. Yeah, fuck sensitivity.
Oh, and I think also the girl from Weird Science is also in Part 4 as well.
Kelly LeBrock?
Maybe. I don't know Weird Science that well.
The one that they made?
I think so.
Oh, shit. You know what? That actually, I don't know. I haven't seen it in so long. But that's kind of like, it's opening the drawers in my mind. And I'm like, pull out that file. It sounds about right. But that's pretty cool if she was.
Yeah, I think that was more or less the last truly great Friday the 13th movie. I mean, the rest of them were kind of subpar after that. Part 5 wasn't even Jason.
Yeah.
It was a Jason impersonator, basically.
Yeah, I didn't like Part 5 at all. But I do remember.
It had its moments.
Yeah, exactly. I do remember Part 5 for having, if I'm not mistaken, one of the kids from A Different Strokes, or one of those shows. It was like one of the friends from, I think it was A Different Strokes, the TV show.
So.
Right, and I remember Jason like falling onto like a. Well, I might be getting these mixed up. So was it a bed of spikes or something to kill him?
Yep.
It was right out of the barn.
Yeah.
And I was like, what's that's not Jason. What's going on? What the? So I was on one hand, and also was Corey Feldman in that one, or was it another actor playing that role?
He showed up in the opening scene.
He was, but wasn't the opening scene? That wasn't a flashback from Part 4, was it? Because I remember at the end of Part 4, didn't he like shave his head and?
Yeah, he
did. All right.
It was either Part 5 or Part 6 that he came back for the opening scene.
Part 6 because he dug up Jason because he kept having these. Because that one I love a lot. I actually like Part 6. I remember that because again it was the beginning of Zombie Jason. If I'm not mistaken, he dug up Jason because he kept having those flashbacks, and he wanted to make sure.
I don't think it was young Corey Feldman.
No, it wasn't Corey Feldman. No, it was another character. It was another actor.
It was another actor, but it was the same character.
Same character, right? And he dug him up. He puts the pole, and then the lightning resurrects Jason. And I was like, Of course, why not? Yes.
And they kind of give you a little nod that it's not actually Jason in Part 5. You know, Jason, his hockey mask always has the little red dashes on there. In Part 5, they had blue.
It was blue.
So that was kind of them saying, like, this isn't really Jason. Part 6 was forgettable to me, more or less. Part 7 had, I think, the best-looking Jason. Parts of his bones were exposed and his spine was showing through, and he had that fucking badass noose thing around his neck.
That's what I loved. That's what I loved about it. I was like, hey, look at this. And because it was, again, they were continuing, just like the original ones, continuing from Part 6. They tied him in the chain and they drowned him. They didn't kill him, but they left him under the water dead. And then the psychic girl, do you remember that actress? Didn't she become kind of well known? That wasn't Patricia Arquette, was it? I might have my movies confused.
I think Patricia Arquette was in Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3.
I think you're right. She played Kristen. You're right. That's where I got it from. And then she wasn't Kristen in Part 4 when she got burnt up in the incinerator. So, right. Gotcha. Yep. Got it mixed up.
But I think it was the introduction of Kane Hodder taking over the role of Jason, in which he held that role.
Wow, really? That was in Part 7?
Yep.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I thought it was Part 6, to be honest.
Yeah. It was Part 7. He got the role. And he held that role until Freddy vs. Jason, which they hired someone else to do it.
And then he did Hatchet.
What's that?
Then he did Hatchet.
Yep, he did the Hatchet trilogy, and actually, I believe in Hatchet 3, he came face to face with the guy who played Ken Kirsinger, the guy who played Jason in Freddy vs. Jason. And I know he also killed in Hatchet 3. He killed Derek Mears, who played Jason in the remake.
Really?
Yeah.
That's fan service, and I didn't know that because I've only watched Hatchet 1, and then Hatchet.
No. The Hatchet trilogy is an ode to horror movies.
Yes,
basically.
it is. Yes.
The 80s slashers, and as the Hatchet movies went on, Adam Green, the writer and director, got more friends. Basically, he got more well known in the horror community, so he became, good friends with Kane Hodder, and Danielle Harris was in parts 2 and 3, and Sid Haig has a cameo in part 3, and
I just want to say real quick, because you mentioned somebody, I just want to throw this out there, ladies and gentlemen of G Show Land. Me, G1, has the ultimate crush on Danielle Harris. since
Oh, me too.
Halloween 4 and 5. She has been, honest to God, like the it girl for me. My wife is taking a shower right now, so I'm allowed to say that. But when she does listen to this podcast later, I am in deep shit. But that's okay. I don't care. It's, you know. But yeah, dude, I love her. I want to go to a horror convention if she's there just to say, you know what? You turn me on, baby. You sure do. I love her. I listen.
I'm sure she not.
Yeah, look, because Jamie Lee Curtis, I mean, she was already kind of like grown up when I was watching Halloween. In my eyes, I've seen it in other things at that time. But when I saw Halloween 4, I'm like, oh my God, we're the same age. I was like, me and this girl, we could get married. I love her. But yeah, I do recall Danielle Harris being in Hatchet 2, even though I didn't see that one. But just, you know, reading about it. Because Netflix had all 3 movies at one point. That's how I saw Hatchet, through Netflix. And I remember when the sequels came out, I had them on my queue, but now they're gone. So I'm like, shit, I missed out on that boat. I'm going to have to watch them somewhere else or go and just buy the damn trilogy because it was good.
Definitely.
It
Definitely
was
buy
good.
it. You will not be disappointed.
Oh, no, I loved Hatchet 1. I honestly, when I watched that movie, I was like, this is what we need in theaters. You know, like, this is it. It is a perfect throwback to everything I grew up with, I should say, even though I didn't see Friday the 13th till later. But I digress. That's pretty fucking awesome that Kane Hodder got to kill the original Jason and the freaking remake Jason, even though I do like that remake Jason. I don't care.
He kills... I might be wrong about Ken Kirsinger being in Hatchet 3. I know they worked together on something. I might be thinking of... It can't be Wrong Turn 2, because I don't think Kane Hodder worked on Wrong Turn 2. But I'm pretty sure they worked together at some point. But yeah, you should check out the rest of the Hatchet movies. Hatchet 3 stars fucking Billy from Gremlins.
No way.
Yeah.
You kidding me?
No, he's like the sheriff.
Oh man, don't tell. I see, you got me all open now because I love that dude. Actually, Gremlins is one of my favorite series, movies, show, like the series I should say, ever. And growing up, Billy was the fucking man. I just think he's like Luke Skywalker. He's got the situation he's in. We are so off topic. We talk Gremlins is one we're gonna spotlight Gremlins.
Definitely.
Around Christmas, because that's when you should spotlight Gremlins.
Yeah.
But I will throw this out there. G2, my original partner in crime, and myself were thinking and coming up with this spec script for a Gremlins movie. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Oh no, I'm going to throw this one in. It was fucking awesome. And I don't mean to toot my own horn. G2 came up with most of the idea, and it was fucking awesome. So yeah, we'll talk about that around Christmas. But back to Friday the 13th. Kane Hodder. That dude embodies Jason. I mean, honestly, because I like I said, I thought he came in on 6. But you're saying 7, and that was the one I remember the most. He's just an imposing presence.
Mm-hmm.
And when, because here's the thing. There's a lot of people who they might not be as into it as we are and as many other people would be into it. So they're like, so what's the significance of Kane Hodder? Who the fuck is he? He just played a dude in a mask. He never got it. This dude's presence in the later movies, when you see him breathing, his body up and down, that's scary shit. Like, that's what made Jason scary to me. Again, the zombie aspect.
Not only that, but he's also the only actor to portray Jason more than once. Nobody else stuck it out a second time. He's the only one who continued to do it, and would continue to do it if they'd given him the opportunity.
Yeah, I honestly, that dude, man, there's something about him just being on screen as Jason. It just knocks it out the park. He was Jason in Freddy vs. Jason, right?
Nope, that was Ken Kirsinger.
It was a different guy, all right? Yeah, because that dude. And listen, I love Freddy vs. Jason. To be perfectly honest with everybody, it's probably the one Jason movie I've watched. I've seen that movie now about 50 times, 60 times. I gotta be honest. Since it came out, I watch it a lot. And I wanted to watch it this past Friday on Friday the 13th, but like I said, I went out, so I didn't get to do that. But that Jason, as cool as he looked, he just stood around. He was like, a lot of scenes he was just standing there, and it's a cool shot. But Kane Hodder would have gave you the breathing. He would have gave you the heaving of the chest up and down. Mm-hmm. There's an intensity behind Kane Hodder's Jason. You know, and that's, for me, it's scary. And it shows on screen, and I fucking loved him for that. I do. I respect that dude as an actor, even though people are like, G1, what the hell are you talking about? An actor. He hides behind a mask. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, body presence. Especially here in G-Show land, we watch Godzilla movies as men in suits. And those men portray these giant monsters a certain way, the way Kane Hodder portrays Jason a certain way. So there's really no difference. Check it out.
Not even that, because he's really grown into his own as an actor. He started off as a stuntman, but now that he's made a name for himself with Jason, he's been given an opportunity to act more. Case in point, he played Victor Crowley, the baddie of the Hatchet trilogy. Sure, that's more suit work and stuff, but he also played in the flashback sequences Victor Crowley's father, and he was acting his fucking heart out in those movies. I know you only saw the first one, so you didn't get a full chance to see his full range, but in one of the scenes in Hatchet 2, it's amazing how good he is.
See, and that's what I like that. I respect that. And I think the horror fans out here in G-Show land know that also and respect that too. And these are the people we're trying to get at right now. And for those who don't know, figure it out, find it out. You know where to go look for it. Amazon. Get it on Amazon Prime. Buy the Hatchet trilogy. And if you haven't seen the Friday the 13th, I mean, go buy that too. Because DVD should be real cheap. I'm sure they have the Blu-rays right now. You can probably get like 3 movies for like $10 on a Blu-ray. So you figure $30 and...
Oh, that's where you're wrong.
No?
The Blu-rays just went out of print. So now the big box set that used to be like $100, you'd find it at Best Buy and stuff, is now worth at least $300. It's ridiculous. It just went out of print within the last few months.
Well, friends of G-Show land, I hate to say pirate anything, but fuck, if you can't afford it, man, go look for them online.
I mean, yeah.
Well, no, but here's the thing: can't you get like digital copies? VOD is a beautiful thing nowadays. You could go on Amazon and either rent
copies. The DVDs are still very much in print. I mean, I basically filled out my entire collection of Friday the 13th movies on DVD just through Walmart in their Halloween sales. You can get 2 movies, two Friday the 13th movies, the deluxe editions, mind you, the ones that came out within the last 5 years or so. Per 2 movies per set, I guess, for $5 a piece around Halloween. Great way to fill out your set until we get another printing of the collection on Blu-ray.
That is true, because I bought the Prophecy movies. I think it's 4 of them. I forget how many, but I bought them on in one package. There's a couple of discs in Walmart around Halloween, and I paid I think $8 for it, all on Blu-ray. And I was like, that's a steal. I love the Prophecy 1. I like the Prophecy 2. I don't remember watching Prophecy 3 or any other sequels after that, but now I have them, and I'll pay $8. I would have paid $20 just for the Prophecy 1, because I like that movie. So, yes, Halloween, you're absolutely right. Perfect time to go and nab some great horror shit, especially at Walmart, because they rule the world. If Disney's the king, Walmart's the queen. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah. I mean, it's Friday the 13th. It's one of the most beloved horror franchises ever. I doubt it's going to stay out of print for that long.
It really is. And you make a great point there. It's synonymous when you think of horror. When you say 80s horror, Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street, those are the first 2 that will pop in your mind, any order. And then maybe Halloween. Because here's the thing. As much as I love the Halloween series, and I've seen Halloween, I've watched the Halloween movies a lot more than the Friday the 13th series. And there is definitely an argument to be made that, well, that belongs up in the top also. Absolutely, no doubt about it. But what Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street was doing in the 80s, Halloween wasn't. And that's multiple sequels. Like you said in the previous podcast, it was like every year there was a sequel being churned out. It was like a Godzilla movie in Japan. Every year there's a sequel getting churned out. Same thing with Nightmare on Elm Street. I don't think it was every year, but every other year there was one coming out. And when you look at it, you have 8 Friday the 13th movies in the 80s. In the 80s. So you had 8 years out of a decade, and you've seen Friday the 13th. You can say the same thing with Freddy Krueger. There's 6 Nightmare on Elm Streets in the 80s. You got 6. It wasn't the case for Halloween. There's 3.
Oh, let me rattle them off in my mind.
Because here's the thing, Halloween, unless Halloween 2 came out in the 70s also, but I know, and I'm discounting Season of the Witch only because it's not a Michael Myers movie. I like Season of the Witch personally.
If we aren't counting Season of the Witch, then it would be just 3.
Yeah, so that's why I don't put that up there. When you think horror in the 80s, it's automatically Nightmare of Friday the 13th or vice versa because of the amount of movies that came out in theaters. So
I would also put it in the way that as similar as characters as Jason and Michael Myers are, and for the record, I vastly prefer the Halloween series over any other horror series, really, or any other slasher franchise. They're two total, like, they're similar characters in the way that they're both silent, wear a mask, and just fuck shit up and can't be stopped. But also the tone of the movies are radically different. The tone of the Halloween movies are radically different than Nightmare on Elm Street or Friday the 13th. They're taken, I guess, a lot, not necessarily more seriously, because they did get pretty weird around part 5 and 6.
Part 6. Part 6. Yeah, I hate that movie.
It was out there. But it was, I guess, just, they didn't have a lot of the typical 80s kind of cliches.
Right.
The black guy wasn't getting killed first. There wasn't, lots of sex and nudity and stuff. It was a lot more, I guess, straightforward kind of horror.
Yes.
I mean, sure, there is cliches in there. Obviously, they do follow a formula, but I guess I wouldn't put them in. They are definitely in that same horror pantheon as Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street, but they didn't follow the trend as much, I think.
You know what? Yeah, I agree with you, because jumping on exactly what you're saying, it felt to me like with the Halloween movies, the kills weren't over the top. Whereas with Friday the 13th, for example, because Nightmare on Elm Street, you have to take and put it in a separate thing. It's supernatural. Freddy Krueger's invade your dreams, and he could do things to you like, use your veins as puppet strings. So still, that's just seared in my brain. One of those visuals I will never forget. I love that shot. But like for Friday the 13th, it felt like, okay, we're bringing Jason back, but we have to up the kills. Like, what are we gonna do to make the kills look more insane? Like, what are we gonna do next? You had the guy get shot with a crossbow in the eye. One of the later movies, I think it might have been Jason X, when he's beating the shit out of the tree with the body bag and the girls in it. Like, it's hysterical. Like, what?
He also did that in part 7.
He did that in part 7 too? Yes, he did.
Killed somebody with a weed whacker. Despite popular belief, Jason never actually used a chainsaw. I mean, obviously Leatherface has his chainsaw, but a lot of visuals, I guess, are people who don't really know. They picture a guy in a hockey mask wielding a chainsaw.
You know what that's called? That's called Splatterhouse, ladies and gentlemen. That was a video game, so get it right. That's not Friday the 13th. That's Splatterhouse. Splatterhouse, the guy who used the chainsaw.
Splatterhouse is a totally different monster.
Exactly. But he's got the hockey mask, and it's automatically Oh man, look, Jason's in a video game. Yes, that video game is called Friday the 13th, and it sucked for Nintendo. And there's a new one coming out that should be really good because it's got this survival horror vibe that's scary as shit. I'm sorry, I jumped off, but I agree with you. Stop it. It's not Jason with a chainsaw, damn it.
I remember being in first grade, and I was at school, and this was at like a Catholic school or something like that, and we were watching some like it was like it wasn't it might have been Looney Tunes or like Animaniacs or something like that. One of those, obviously more for kids kind of animated things, but it was about two of these characters on the road, and they stop for this guy in the middle of the night in a big storm, and I don't remember much about this at all except for this one little scene of the guy putting on a hockey mask and a chainsaw and just chasing them around. Obviously, not really trying to emulate Jason, but that's who they were referencing.
Oh, listen, there's a couple of things like that in animation. One of my favorite episodes of all time of The Simpsons, they did the Cape Fear ripoff, where Sideshow Bob was chasing Bart, and then they did the whole Cape Fear, Robert De Niro, Nick Nolte movie that is a fucking classic, and they're going down the river, and Homer Simpson, Bart's sleeping, he's scared because Sideshow Bob's trying to kill Bart. And Homer Simpson jumps in the room, and he's got at first it's a Halloween nod, and then it's Friday the 13th. He's got the big Michael Myers butcher knife, and he's got the brownie. And he's like, "Hey boy, you want to have some of the brownies I just baked?" And Bart screams, "Ah!" And he's, "Oh, I'm sorry," and he leaves the room. And then Bart goes lays down. He takes a deep breath, and then he tries to go back to sleep. And all of a sudden, the door busts open again. "Hey boy, you want to see my new chainsaw and hockey mask I just bought?" It's like the funniest thing ever. I was like, oh my god. That could be another reason why people thought Jason might have wielded a chainsaw. But if you've never seen that, man, go look that up. The Simpsons, Sideshow Bob trying to kill Bart, Cape Fear. It is one of the funniest sequences I've seen on that show. Seriously, that shit stands out. I love that little part. It has me cracking up hysterical. Plus, the episode is fucking great. Sideshow Bob trying to walk, and there's like a bunch of rakes all on the floor, and he keeps stepping on them, and they smack him in the face, and he's like, ugh. It's just great shit. Way off topic. Let's jump back to topic. Because you got through pretty much the series.
I led up to part
8.
7. I left it. We got to talk about 8. Have to talk about it. Jason Takes Manhattan.
The greatest Friday the 13th movie ever made.
What? No.
I'm lying. Survey says that's a lie. No, listen. All right. You know why I like this movie? Because it said Jason Takes Manhattan. And I wanted to see that in theaters. I didn't. And when I did see Jason Takes Manhattan, I was like, wait a minute. This shit should be called Jason Takes a fucking cruise ship. Jason takes a trip on a boat. Because he was in Manhattan for 10 minutes.
Mm.
And I'm saying to myself, there's only one cool thing in the whole movie, and that's my man on the roof, the black dude. He's, come on. And he's going to box him, and Jason uppercuts his head off. Johnny Caged him. And that was it. To me, that was like the best part of that whole movie. Because I hate that movie a lot.
It really was. Pretty much
especially the ending. Ugh.
Redeeming part. I mean, how Crystal Lake was somehow connected to
like
a passageway to Manhattan.
Yeah, it was like the Hudson River. Well, if Crystal Lake is supposed to be in New Jersey, I don't know the geography of these movies because when Freddy vs. Jason comes out, it's like Crystal Lake and then Elm Street's down the block. What the fuck just happened? Okay. Batman v Superman, Gotham and Metropolis is just across the river. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how the geography of these movies takes place, but let's just say Crystal Lake was in New Jersey, which, I don't know. That maybe kind of, sort of, there's a channel into the Hudson that goes down, it gets to the end of Manhattan or the tip of Manhattan. Because listen, I lived in New York, don't want to throw my age out here, but I lived in New York 30 plus years. Okay, I worked in Manhattan almost 15. Worked in Manhattan, so yeah, I see the Hudson. I know where that's at. I've actually been on the river, so there's not technically maybe it could have happened, but still, the majority of that movie called Jason Takes Manhattan takes place on a boat. Ugh.
I can forgive that. Really, it's uh it's a misleading title, which is a shitty thing to do, but it happens. Case in point, the new movie that just came out, Justice League versus Teen Titans. They fought for about 5 minutes.
Yeah,
maybe.
but you know what the difference with that is it's animated. There was, I saw that and I actually really liked that movie. But this is Jason Taking Manhattan, man. I want to see this dude run ransack from downtown all the way up to Times Square.
My point is, like, it's a misleading title. It's a shitty thing to do, but I can forgive it. What is unforgivable about that movie is how they killed Jason. They're just gonna wash him away with radioactive, like, sewage and shit, and
First
that
off,
puts him back to a child.
Yeah, see,
Fucking what?
You see, I take high offense to that. First off, the water in New York City is the best water on the fucking planet, tap water wise. And I'm not mutated, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not. Maybe I'll die in a couple of years, and then we can blame the movie and the water. They might have had it right, but I don't think that's gonna happen. There's no toxic fucking waste in New York City in the sewer system, man. That is such a man. That made me upset. I was like, come on, guys, that's not nice. Don't shit on my town, my city like that. The fuck. Anyhow, I too was upset. Not because they turned Jason into a child, which was stupid, but because it never continued from that. You know what I mean? It just it stopped there. But before we get into that, I just want to say, also, Jason's face in that.
Yeah, it was awful.
Terrible. Like you said, Part 7 had probably the best looking zombie Jason on screen. And then he's reduced to this, like, it looked like a cartoon character. It was goofy. It was dumb. I was, what the fuck? What is this? In Part 7, his skin was kind of like Godzilla color, the charcoalish gray. It was like grayish blue. He was dead. He was a zombie. He had the bones exposed. And in here, he was kind of like pale. It was like an eggshell color. It just looked stupid, and I was like, why did they do that? Ugh. Oh man, it was the worst. That was by far, but I can't say it was the worst. It had to be the worst because I hate Part 9 just as equal because let's get into Part 9, which wasn't.
Just before we get into Part 9, I gotta say that more or less leading up to Part 8 or Part 9, I should say, that's when like it's all one continuity basically up to Part 9 anyway. It's all one big, more or less linear story. But even though the continuity is completely fucked, like how years and times and when things are supposed to be taking place doesn't add up at all. But anyway, I don't know where I was going with that, but Part 9.
Hey, welcome to the club. I never do. Yeah, Part 9.
I don't mind that one actually so much. It's radically different, and it broke the formula, I think, and that's kind of a decent thing.
Well, you got to remember one thing too. A little interruption here. Part 9 also wasn't made by Paramount, which had produced the previous 8. Part 9 now, Jason belonged to New Line Cinema at this point.
Yeah.
So it was. That's why they couldn't use Friday the 13th, and they had to just write Jason Lives the Final Friday. Right? Well, no, not Jason Lives. What the hell was it called? Just the Final Friday?
It's called Jason Goes to Hell. Jason
Goes to Hell. Oh my god. Ugh, just the title makes me mad. Just seriously.
I think you're thinking of Freddy's Dead.
Freddy's Dead, yeah, the Final Nightmare. So it's just Jason Goes to Hell. I could have sworn it was the Final Friday, but it is the Final Nightmare. which is also another bad movie. We'll go to that maybe in another spotlight.
Oh, but it wasn't terrible. It was really weird and different, and not one that I actually watched that much. But it was still an interesting movie, I'd say. It has a lot of cool little shout-outs, obviously, with Jason's mask being dragged down to hell by fucking Freddy.
Well, that's the end. We can't get to the end yet. We have to still start at the beginning.
No, we can. I'm talking about the things that I like about this movie.
Well, the first thing you mentioned that you like is the end of the movie, and I agree with that.
No, there's other things that I like about it. You know, there you see the Necronomicon from Army of Darkness,
right? Which I hated.
Jason's like little homestead, because those movies came out more or less around the same time and had the same special effects crew. So they just brought that little prop over. And also, I think Jason, when we do see him, looks fucking phenomenal. It's tied for my favorite Jason look with Part 7.
That I'll agree with. But again, we only see Jason for like half the time because most of that movie is people possessed by a fucking Jason worm. And I hate it. Oh my God. What the fuck? Because, all right, here's the pluses for me. You mentioned Evil Dead thing. If I'm not mistaken, not only was the Necronomicon in it, I thought, because I don't watch that movie, but I could have sworn the knife they used that was supposed to kill Jason was like the same knife from like Evil Dead.
Maybe,
right? I don't. All I remember, it was like it had a rib cage on it. This is like a tiny rib cage, you know. And I think there was like the skull had a mouth open and the blood would come out of the mouth when you stab somebody. Maybe I'm wrong again. I hate that movie so much I don't watch it. I saw that in the theaters. I went to see that. I was like, oh shit, dude, Jason Goes to Hell. We gotta go see it. Let's go. Went to see it.
It did have a really cool opening of
the SWAT team blowing Jason up at Crystal Lake. Yeah, I totally agree with you.
Fucking badass. And I always really liked the look of Jason's like kind of flesh is kind of growing over the mask. Stuff like that. And
I agree with that too. But then again, here's what makes me mad. You completely discount 8. What the fuck happened? He was a kid. As much as I hated that movie, he was a child at the end of 8. What happens? And that's one of those.
Fine. I mean, the Friday the 13th or the Nightmare on Elm Street movies follow a very, very loose continuity.
Not true. I'll tell you why. The only one that actually breaks that mold, if I'm not mistaken, is the Final Friday. Is Part 6. Because if you watch from Part 1 to Part 5, it's very tied together. It's very tied together.
Very is I think the wrong word. It's tied together.
All right, well, I'll say it like this. At the end of each movie, you see Freddy. He's coming back. He's coming back. You know Freddy's coming back. And we already know Freddy is this. He's not a tangible monster unless you bring him into the world. You know, when you wake up and you pull him through. He's a dream demon. Jason, from 1 to 8, it was kind of loosely all going the same route. Think about it. 4 is the final chapter. 5 is not Jason. 6, brand new. What's the kid's name? Corey Feldman. Whoever's playing Corey Feldman's character in 6, he needs to make sure Jason is dead. He's been dead for mad long. Dude, you're a grown man now. But no, he digs him up, opens that casket. It still ties in. The end of 6, he gets dropped underwater. The boat cuts his throat. The propeller's on a boat. 7, he's brought out of the water by the psychic, put back down in the water. I don't remember how the hell he got on the boat in 8, because again, I hate 8. But then at the end of 8, he's a child. He's not dead. He's not reduced to bones. He's a child. They all kind of followed suit, and then you get Jason Goes to Hell, and it's like, oh, here's Jason. He's all lumpy. He's got the tumorous things growing over the mask, which I thought that was cool too. The mask becoming a part of him. But it's like, where did he come from? Are we rejecting everything that's come before? What's going on? And I think maybe it was that because now it's New Line taking over, and maybe they have their own agenda. But I just felt like At
I'm
least,
fine.
huh?
I'm fine with that. Really.
No, I'm not. Hey, and you know what? I know a lot of people are, but I felt like they added so many elements that were so really out there, especially the worm. I hate that. I fucking hate. I hate that the worm could go into a dead body, impregnate a dead body, and turn into Jason. Oh shit! I did like the eating of the hearts though. The dude ate the heart.
Mm-hmm.
It was gory. It was crazy. What happened?
It was a different take. I don't mind it. I mean, Jason X was a pretty fucking drastically different take too.
Oh, listen. Jason X don't exist in this dojo. Jason X does not exist in this dojo at all. But I have come to appreciate that movie for what it is more than I can appreciate Jason Goes to Hell. The only saving grace for Jason Goes to Hell, for me, is the fucking Freddy glove. That was it. I was like, oh fuck God. Because it set up something that we didn't get for another fucking maybe 8-9 years. I don't even remember how long it took for that movie to get made. But I was like, because no, I was a teenager when Jason Goes to Hell came out, and I was an adult when, you know, Freddy vs. Jason finally came out. So I was just like, Jason X, yeah, I hated it at first. It's like, oh, everybody's going to, you know, space. I can't stand this. The Leprechaun's there, Jason's there, Pinhead's there. Please, Freddy, don't go to space. Please, Freddy, don't go to space. Please. Thank God Michael Myers never went to space. I was just Pumpkinhead in space. My head would have exploded, dude. So I was kind of mad at that. But again, I appreciate that movie more now than I did then. It's fun. And,
out of all of the in-space movies, I think that was the best.
Oh,
I mean,
well, because Jason
was okay.
Yeah, but Jason looked fucking phenomenal. Don't get me wrong. That look, Uber Jason, is one of the best fucking looks I've ever seen. I love that thing.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. It works on a lot of levels, and plus that's, you know, futuristic space machete. Come on now, that shit was dope.
Yeah,
I love that. And it had a lot of cool, again, like the hologram sequence where he's smashing the girl on the side of the tree. I appreciated it more later than I did the first time I saw it, but I cannot forgive Jason Goes to Hell. I just can't. I can't. Again, the Necronomicon scene that day was cool, and it really was a nice way to set up, if they would have went that route, Freddy versus Jason versus Ash, which the comic book, I own that. I read it. I actually just recently read it 3 months ago. It's fun. I can't see it being a movie, but it's fun. So yeah, sorry for shitting on that Jason Goes to Hell parade. Go ahead and tell me why you like that movie, bro. I apologize. I
haven't seen that movie in a lot of years. So, but I remember not hating it. I thought it was, oh, this is weird. This is different. It's okay. But as for the Freddy versus Jason versus Ash thing, I got a chance to, when My Name is Bruce came out in 2008, I believe. Bruce Campbell was taking it around the country to doing like small indie theaters and stuff, and I got tickets. I was in like 8th grade. 8th grade was a big fucking year for me. I got tickets to go, and we showed the movie. We were sitting in front row, and Bruce Campbell did a Q&A afterwards, and somebody asked about the possibility of Freddy versus Jason versus Ash becoming a real movie. And apparently at one point there were actual talks of it becoming a thing.
Oh, it was, dude. I got those Fangoria issues where they were talking in depth about it. They're like 2-page articles. Mm-hmm. I was like, holy shit, that's going to happen? But I'm sorry, go ahead.
And somebody asked Bruce Campbell about if that was in the works or what happened with that, and he said, well, they called us and like, hey, we want to do Freddy versus Jason versus Ash, and we were like, does Ash win? No. All right, bye.
Oh,
apparently that's how that conversation went.
Yeah, that's terrible. But yeah, here's the thing. I think, and I'm not trying to shit on the horror genre because we love it. It's what it is, and there's a billion fans. Ash, I don't think is that marketable a name. Outside of the horror community, nobody knows who Ash is. They know what Evil Dead might be, you know, but it's never Ash. Bruce Campbell as Ash. Bruce Campbell did a bunch of other low-budget B-movie horror movies. He also was on Burn Notice, which was a phenomenal USA show that people really loved and respect him on. But the draw would have been Freddy and Jason. It would have been, not Ash. Nobody would have... Maybe later they would have like, oh, yeah, I remember that movie from back in the day, right? That one? And then that's outside of that horror-based community. But outside of that horror-based community, Jason and Freddy, that's a common thing. They are right. Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th. And again, that's due because of the 80s. Constantly putting those movies out yearly. So, I'll be honest with you. I'm glad we didn't get that. I don't think it fit.
It probably would have been pretty bad, but
yeah, really.
I don't, because I didn't like the first Freddy, the only Freddy versus Jason we got, which we'll get into that in a second. But Ash and Bruce Campbell are my fucking guys, man. They're infallible to me, and I will absorb anything involving Ash or Bruce Campbell that I can. Well, not everything with Bruce Campbell, because some of it's Alien Apocalypse.
Yeah, let's not. No, please don't. No, no. I shut that off. Goodbye. I couldn't.
Yeah, that was bad.
No, I agree with you. Listen, I love Evil Dead 1. Evil Dead 2 is very different. I don't hate that movie, and I don't dislike that movie. But I just was like, they're remaking Evil Dead 1, and they're making it a bit comedic. That I didn't like, because I love Evil Dead 1. I think that's a perfect horror movie, like, in every aspect of the word. But yeah, you know, Jason went to hell, Freddy pulled his mask down, then Jason went to space, completely ignoring the events of Jason Goes to Hell. Because, sure, why not, right? But then Jason met Freddy. And
still ignored the events of everything prior.
It did not endure the events of Jason Goes to Hell, because now we got the reasoning behind Freddy's glove pulling down the mask, and I'm going to tell you something.
Not really, because Jason wasn't in hell, he was sleeping.
Well, we got the continuation, I should say, and maybe that's the thing. You just never can kill Jason.
I mean, Freddy was in hell at that point. That's it. Jason wasn't in hell. Jason Goes to Hell ends with Jason going to hell. Beginning of Freddy vs. Jason is Jason being asleep in Crystal Lake. He's hanging out there. He's more or less in hibernation.
So now let me ask you a question. That being said, the events of Jason Goes to Hell, the things that happen in that movie, could it not have been maybe that the idea of that worm regenerating and turning regular people into Jason? Because that's what happened in that movie. The girl was dead, Jason Worm went up her legs, and boom, Jason popped out. What's to say that worm might have survived somewhat and did that, and then now is in sleep mode? Because the end of Jason X, I can't count it only because unless Jason X happens after Freddy versus Jason, because I can't count that, because at the end of that movie it's still Uber Jason, you know. But all that being said, the fact that we're getting what we were kind of promised at the end of Jason Goes to Hell, Freddy vs. Jason. I love this movie, dude. I love it. It's bad. It's boring in the beginning. Not even that it's boring, but I love it. I love how, in order for Freddy to come back, he has to get people remembering him. You know? And he uses Jason as that tool. I love that. Whenever Freddy and Jason fight, I don't even care if it's that stupid pinball part in the dream sequence. I loved it because it was, you know what? Freddy became campy. After Nightmare 1 and 2, and to some degree 3, because 3 still had really scary parts in it, he became kind of comedic, and that's why I was able to watch Freddy Krueger movies, because I was like, all right, he's funny. Fuck it. I'm going to laugh at it instead of cringing. I'm going to laugh. So when he's doing the whole Jesus Christ, what the fuck, pinball with Jason in the dream sequence, bing, 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 bing. I found that hysterical because that was something Freddy would do now, and that, that Freddy. And then they pull out into the real world, and then you get that, dude. That fight sequence was fucking awesome. I love I love that movie, and it might be because when I saw that in theaters, and I tell this to everybody, that theater legitly rocked. You really felt like if you go to a live event and you feel the energy in that movie theater at the end when Freddy and Jason is fighting, you felt this energy. The theater was rocking. Everybody was cheering Freddy or Jason. It didn't matter. We were going nuts, and I maybe that's why I have a special place in my heart. But also because the fact that I like these versus type movies, and I like when you get to see these characters interact in that way. And Freddy versus Jason, why the fuck not? Have these two fucking slasher psychos slash each other to death, hack each other to death. I loved it.
I don't know. I think when we get these kind of versus movies, they always turn out to be really dumb. Not campy in a good kind of way. I will say that I do pop on Freddy vs. Jason from time to time because it's an entertaining movie, but I think it is pretty shitty. But going all the way back to the 40s, Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, two powerhouses of Universal horror meeting for the first time, and we get a pretty lousy movie. That's partly on the studio's end for cutting out the whole aspect of Frankenstein being blind and kind of cutting out all of his dialogue, so because he did originally speak in that movie and stuff. But that from then on, all the movies where horror people meet are just dumb and goofy.
But I think that's where the charm comes from. And I'm not saying Freddy vs. Jason has charm, but like King Kong versus Godzilla, to me, there's a charm behind that. Because honestly, if it wasn't for King Kong, Godzilla would never have been around. That's the story.
I mean, Toho and Toho's crossovers with King Kong and Godzilla, or Godzilla and Mothra and all that. That's a separate discussion.
I know that. I'm not saying, but what I'm saying is when you bring in these two, let's use the word icons. Maybe they weren't icons back then, but they sure the fuck are icons now. In any aspect, whether it be Frankenstein and the Wolfman, King Kong and Godzilla, Aliens versus Predator, and Freddy and Jason, they're horror icons. I'm not gonna sit here and say vampires versus zombies is iconic. No, it's not. It's fucking stupid. Don't do it. I'm not gonna sit here and say what the hell is it called? Was it Xenomorph versus Hunter? There was an Aliens versus Predator knockoff that I wanted to bang my head into the wall.
It was like Alien versus Hunter or something like that.
Yeah, it was absolutely terrible. But I'm talking about the marquee names. So there's a certain charm behind just the idea of it. You know what I'm saying?
Well, the idea of it is always cool to me, but it's never been executed well, ever.
I got you. Well, here's another little side story. I'm going to throw this out there again. Me and my partner G2 is actually working on a script for Freddy vs. Jason Part 2. It had no involvement with Ash whatsoever. But I'll tell you this. We could have been the Russo brothers doing what they're doing in those Marvel movies. I'm just saying, we could have. And, man, we just, one day, I don't know, it fell through our fingers. But we seriously, we came up with this crazy story. We wound up throwing ourselves in it as, stupid characters. Just, the bumbling, idiotic, we're getting killed characters.
Mm-hmm.
But we had, this whole idea of how we brought Freddy back, Jason back. We had this whole idea, and I really wish we would have went through that because it was fun. Whether or not anything would have came of it, I wish we would have finished the script at least. So at least we could say, hey, dude, at least we wrote that. And in our eyes, that's the movie that should be made, We never finished the script, but we have the basic story just down. And I'll talk to you about that off camera one time. Because it was awesome. But,
love to hear it.
Yeah. But, all right, listen, man. We're a little over the time, and we thank you for pretty much rocking on because again, The Friday movies, they're not my forte. I haven't seen them in a long time. And the only ones I have seen a lot, Freddy versus Jason, and unfortunately Jason Goes to Hell, and things like that, things I didn't like. But I want to thank you for hanging out with us and doing what you did.
I know my stuff.
Yeah, I know. We'll get into a lot more of that later. And I also want to thank you guys out there in G Show Land. Thank you for hanging out with us on this Spotlight Friday the 13th. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and comment, man. Leave your thoughts. Tell us what you thought. Give us some information. If we might have said something wrong, man, correct us. It's all good. I like it. G95 likes it. And you know what? It just helps us make a better product. So, that all said, adios, people. And, don't cross a black cat on Friday the 13th. Don't walk under a ladder. And definitely stay away from fucking lakes, camps near lakes. Peace.